Ask the Podcast Coach for April 14th, 2018.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that fun-filled music that means it's Saturday morning. It's 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm your host, Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there is the one and only Jim Cullison from the AverageGuy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings. Happy Saturday morning to you, Dave. I guess I'm pimping my kid's school out this morning, Bellevue East Chieftains, so nothing to advertise. A little bit of a cold, so I'm struggling with the whole vocal cords this morning. I may have to mute to cough. So
we're gonna be up against that here in Ohio because it was beautiful yesterday. We actually hit 70 for the first time, and I think on Monday it's supposed to snow.
We're sending it your way. We have it right now.
Yes.
So it was so beautiful yesterday, but then as the day progressed, it got worse. They were talking snow at some point today. I don't think we're going to get it, but it's funny when the weather changed. I'm not sure if it's that or they were burning something in Kansas. I'm in Nebraska.
Okay.
And so it was really hazy here over the last couple days. And yeah, I didn't know they did that. But anyways, I went out and worked out outside because it was beautiful, but I think I might have picked up some something related to it. So a little deeper voice. I got the deep guy voice going on this morning.
And I'm curious, we will continue on with the witty banter. What is the difference between a chieftain and a chief?
Yeah, you got me.
Okay.
It's kind of like the Genesis pre-show conversation we had. We were both wrong. I don't know. It's they've taken a lot of heat for this chieftain
I bet.
thing, and they actually had one of the local Indian tribes here in Nebraska come out and say it's okay, and some other things, but and I thought they were going to change it at one point, but they ended up keeping it.
The Cleveland Indians finally ditched Chief Wahoo. I believe he's finally gone.
Yeah, it's politically charged. The other school here in Bellevue is the Thunderbirds. It's a military thing, and nobody ever complains about that. So I think we're okay there.
Well, my high school, we were the Orangemen, which we had this giant Hulk, which was I'm sure, like copyright infringement somehow, except he was orange. Yeah. And there was times that were just like, well, what about the female students? And I'm like, okay, really? We're gonna argue about the
we have the bunnies here in town and up at Omaha, the Benson bunnies, and they got a roided out bunny as their thing, and then it was like, is that too manly, too macho? You can't win. It's like
you can't.
We're gonna be the blanks. What? The blanks. Yeah. We have nothing as our mascot. No images.
One of my favorite Joe Walsh albums was "You Bought It, You Name It." Yeah. It's like, look, whatever. Yeah. Doesn't really matter.
I'm just a square. I'm just a white square.
Yeah. Hey, if you have a question and you want to jump on in, it's super simple. Go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/join while you're listening live. If you're listening to this later, well, then we're not live anymore, but we are here every Saturday at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Or if you want, you can do what Kyle did, which is just send us a question. So we will play that now.
Hello, Dave and Jim. I'm dropping you a voicemail here on SpeakPipe. I just usually don't have time to catch the live show on Saturday mornings, but I appreciate your listening to you guys on Ask the Podcast Coach. And I just kind of had a question to kind of maybe this is a big picture thing about podcasting in general, but my example is that we have in my school district, we have the superintendent does a podcast, and we're 27 episodes in, and we're averaging about 105 listens per episode. So I think we should have more than that. It's only 105. But to contrast that, recently a teacher put out a YouTube video that he started basically doing a vlog and just making some YouTube videos for an individual school. And he got like 600 views on YouTube. And then the superintendent also just put out a video on YouTube, and she got about 900 views on that video. So I guess I'm almost just wondering, like, what is the point of even doing this podcasting thing if YouTube is just getting astronomically more views and listens than what we're getting on podcasting? So, maybe that's some food for thought there on YouTube versus podcasting.
So, Jim, I thought I would let you take the first swing at this because I'm pretty sure I know where you stand on this.
Well, I mean, I think you got to be everywhere, right? And the YouTube, the power of YouTube, I think, isn't getting less; it's getting more. And now with YouTube TV coming on, Mike Uyghur, the co-host of Home Gadget Geeks with me, he just said he bought the YouTube TV for $40 a month. It's so good. He's going to hold his cable. He's got 2 more months before he can cancel his cable. He's going to do both because the wife acceptance factor, we talk about that a lot in the tech space, is so high. Like Hannah cannot, she's like, this is so great. Well, so YouTube is really getting their act together. We mentioned this last week. Their let me back that up. Their subscription service on YouTube is really good. The notifications bell on YouTube is really good. It's all working, right? And so I just think YouTube is another place. I don't think in this case you stop doing RSS, because for those of us who like to download and listen to on a plane where I can't stream it, or on a car or whatever, I still need that. And yeah, podcasting this could be controversial. I actually think YouTube's a better distribution model than RSS is right now, for numbers, just for sheer numbers. But I think you still have to do both. So you find a way to get it on YouTube because that's where people are right now.
Yeah, I sat here and did numbers. He said the one person got 600 views, and he got basically, I think he said 105 on his podcast. Well, that's 700 views. That 105 is 15%. So you're gonna just blow off 15% of your audience because and some people, some people want to listen, some people want to watch, some people want to do both. And if it's not killing the budget, you could actually do it on YouTube if you're doing if the superintendent is just talking into a camera and just pull the audio, throw it on your favorite media host and go to town. I'm like, takes 15 minutes at that point if you're not going to do any editing. So
on our Gallup podcasts, we get probably 3,000 audio downloads through our RSS feed, and we only get maybe 1,000 views on the videos on YouTube. So it's a little bit different. They're not as popular there as they are now. We have spent the last 4 years training everybody to use the RSS feed, right? So we've been training people, get it on your phone, in a car, in a train, on a plane, those kinds of things. So some of it is, where is your audience too, and how are you going to title it? Like YouTube titling is super important, that it's making those connections and it's showing up in people's feeds. And I really do. Here's a second question we can answer later. If you turn your monetization off, do you hurt yourself? I have, but maybe we can come back to that. So I think you got to throw it out there. And I don't think you necessarily, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. If you just have audio, I think it's okay to throw it out there with some slides. But if you can get audio and video, it's so much better. And I think more people will watch it out there.
Yeah, it's more fun to watch, I would think, than just a slide or whatever.
Well, you can do some creative things with slides.
Yeah.
You could,
I've seen a lot of and I'm always amazed that it's still there, but music videos where people will take somebody's song that you don't have copyright to, and they'll make their own video. And sometimes it's really, or especially these lyric videos with pictures and stuff. And I'm like, it's enough to hold my attention, because usually whatever slide is up is there for maybe 3 seconds, because they're trying to have pictures that show what's going on with the words. And it's enough to where I usually found it because I'm looking for the song. But now as I'm listening, I'm actually also watching whatever they did. And then that's half the other part is it's me just going, hey, somebody that isn't the band, this is their interpretation of what the lyrics mean. And I'm always like, okay. But yeah, I know. And the other thing he said I thought was interesting, we have 105 listens. I think it should be more. And my answer to that is why? Why do you think you need more listens? And it sounds kind of funny, but it's like, are you sure you're hitting the nail on the head? Are you sure you're, or is it just because, this other person, and I get why people do that. It's impossible not to compare yourself to others. But when you say, somebody else is doing a similar show and they're getting 500 downloads and I'm getting 100, I'm like, okay, when did they start? How do they promote? That whole 9 yards. But I thought that was an interesting thing. We're getting 105.
I don't disagree with him actually. With his superintendent, okay,
Yeah.
let's think about a typical school district. We're probably talking thousands of parents where you're getting to hear the superintendent of your district like personally talk to you every week. Yes. So I don't, and I haven't listened to it. I'm sure it's great content. It's probably not a content problem. It's probably a awareness problem. And then you're talking about parents who have kids in school, and that it, they're busy. Like they're not. They may or may not have time. I mean, think about it's really hard to get people converted over. If it's information that stays good and stays consistent and helps them out, then once they join, they'll keep listening. I've subscribed to a couple vlogs on YouTube over the last couple months that are really interesting to me. Man, I don't miss them. When those alerts pop out, I'm watching them in real time. I want to see what they're doing. So you gotta slowly make it a part of people's schedule, right? It's got to be, hey, I'm going to listen to this on the way home from work on Thursday. All right. That's why I think being consistent in the way when you post your podcast is so important, because you become a part of somebody's schedule.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I would be interested to see if they're sending that out to an email. Are they saying, hey, so here's a new podcast, or even if it's just the local school, if it was like,
Yep, we lost your audio. I'm sure I didn't, but or I did, but flip it over real quick. Sorry.
All right.
You know what I noticed when your audio goes out like that it still works locally for you, because I hear it in the recording. Oh, now we're not on your mic.
Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, this drives me nuts.
That's like old school here. This is hearing the audio old school from you.
Well, what's weird is I should take a screenshot, because somehow when I added I'm looking for one that says main. I can see, there it is.
Left and right. Okay.
There we go. There we go. Okay.
But I literally have a list this long, and some of them are now virtual lines, and I don't even know what that means.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I would be interested to see if they're at least, let's say it's just a podcast for this local elementary school, if they're at least emailing the parents of that. But you have a good point. Is anybody going to listen to that? Do those parents know what a podcast is? Is it, are they at least giving a click to the website where people could listen if they don't know how to subscribe? There's a lot of stuff there. Ross in the chat room, by the way, Ross filled in the mystery. A chieftain is a leader of a clan or tribe, while a chief is a leader or head of a group of people, organizations. So maybe the chieftain is the chief.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. But he says, do you think it's a mistake to put a brief daily podcast on YouTube, since the material isn't necessarily evergreen? Or could I title it based on the most evergreen topic, because most of the podcasts have something that isn't time limited? I don't know.
Good question. It's who's your audience and will they listen to it? Right. Yeah. I mean, it's I subscribe to a couple of vlogs that are nearly daily. So, they're probably 4 out of 7 days, maybe every other day is a better way to say that. And I go back. I mean, I wait for the notification bell to hit me every day on the treadmill. This has become my pattern. Every day on the treadmill, I find, okay, what are the latest videos from the people I follow? And I hit the video and put it up on the treadmill, and that's what I watch that day. Right. And that's my pattern. That's that when I'm in the fitness center, that's how that works. So Ross, if it's daily and you can get a bunch of people trained to use it as part of while they're working out or on their walk or in their car, right, or whatever, and then I think they'll just follow it that way. It gets to be a lot of videos after a while. And what do you do? If you do daily and you got 350 videos out on YouTube, how manageable is that? So I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, because if it says, hey, you go back and it's like, hey, whatever, Yahoo canceled their podcast directory. Well, okay, that's from like 2007. Is that any value? And that's where you kind of have to go, well, kids, come on, it's a news show. What do you expect it to be? So do you then go in and delete things that aren't relevant anymore? Or, yeah, that's a toughie. Because that's the bottom line is it any value? Or the good news is it's pretty easy to go into your creator studio and just highlight a bunch and go, see you, bye.
Yeah.
delete
Yeah,
it.
if you think if they're not worth it, I've gone back and watched some videos from years ago from some of my content creators that I like to watch, and I don't know. I think I'd leave it. I don't think I'd take them down.
Yeah. And as always, throw it up and see what happens.
Yeah, get some feedback.
I had a lot of people this week trying to put things on SoundCloud when they ran out of room. And because they only give you 3 hours. I actually dug into that. They give you 3 hours of free space. And so I would always say, here's what you can do. Go over and look at what kind of plays you're getting on SoundCloud, and decide whether or not it's worth the $15. And most people go, I'm not getting any plays on SoundCloud. And I'm like, well, is that worth $15? And they go, no. And I'm like, well, then don't upgrade and just don't worry about it. And they're like, but there's this thing. We just had a thing about this on the Podcasters Roundtable of people doing things because that's the way people always did them. And SoundCloud is one. I don't want to bash them, but if you go over and you see you're getting 60 plays on SoundCloud because apparently your audience is all about the SoundCloud app, by all means, that's worth $15. Do it. But you don't know unless you put it out there and see what happens, I guess. Let's see. Chris Nessie says, what is that?
Well, yeah, let me tell you. So on Thursday, Chris Nessie joined me on Home Gadget Geeks, and we talked about EdTech. And Chris had some really good. He had 3 really good apps that they're using in EdTech today that could break out and be used in other places. And one of the conversations we had this product called Flipgrid. Just go to flipgrid.com if you want to look at it. It was just a way of kind of collaborating, a bunch of students collaborating on a project. He could throw out an idea or a concept or a lesson, and they could all collaborate in real time via video or whatever on this. And I said, what if we flip that to the podcasting side? And what if we allowed our audience live to collaborate on our show notes, to add things to it, videos, comments, links, whatever. And so we birthed this idea. What if I took my Google Doc, which normally is between you and me, Dave, in a show like this? We might have a collaborative Google Doc that has show notes in it. What if we opened up that Google Doc to the audience and said, hey, everybody's welcome to jump in here and add their 2 cents in the show notes? And what if we move the chat room into the chat feature in Google Docs? Because there's a chat. You can also kind of open up a chat room, and that way the chat and the show notes are together, and you get this idea of collaborative show notes, which I thought was pretty cool. So we talked through it, and then Chris said, hey, well, maybe we could talk about it on Saturday morning as an option. Like, since this is a bunch of podcasters that are listening to us right now, would you allow your audience to come in and collaborate with you live or even after the fact on some show notes about the show? Allow them to see the show notes as well as contribute to them, whether it be links or information or videos or audio or memes. Even the memes part was funny because Emily was in the chat room in my show, and then of course she immediately made a meme for me, which was pretty awesome. So I don't know, Dave, what do you think? What if we had a Google Doc right now where people listening could contribute as we're talking?
I think as long as there's a cutoff point, like, okay, we're going to take all this input, and at 12:30, the show notes are closed. And at that point, I can go in, or you can go in, or whoever's the show note police, go in and take the best of that. And it might be all of it, and put it at, on your website as the main show notes. The thing that worries me is there's always a chance you're going to have that one person. And for me, I'm about done with Voxer. I love Voxer. I know Chris Nessie is just screaming at his screen. What? Because some people, and here's why I hate it. If I'm in a group and somebody sends a message to the group, like let's say, Jim, you're in Voxer, we're in a group of podcasters, and you send a message to the group. In my alert, it says Jim Collison sent you a message. And no, he didn't. He sent it to the group. So I'm constantly going, oh, then I'll see where Chris Nessie sent me a message or whoever. And I'm like, oh, and I'll go out and it's just this blah, blah, blah message. And there's just one group I'm in that there's a lot of blah, blah, blah. And there's actually starting to be a lot of self-promotion. And I need to go in and check my settings to see, in this group, because I'm in a group on Voxer, don't send me notifications because it's just in the. Do you remember the old Saturday Night Live skit? If it's not Scottish, it's crap. It's like if it's from that group, it's probably crap, and I'm
probably not going to be good.
Yeah,
but I don't know. So back to the collaborative show notes. So okay,
yeah,
let's just say like in this group of, and I know, I mean, we have a great list of people out there in the chat room. I don't think we'd have that guy or that gal, so to speak. So let's just say chat room, those of you who are out there listening live, would you contribute? And I'm not talking about the audience writing the show notes for you. I'm talking about we get all this good collective information, like Ross said, the difference between a chief and a chieftain, right? He looked it up. He could copy and paste that into the show notes. That would add value, right? On the end, that might be something that would show up. And I think you're right, Dave. I would copy and paste them into my WordPress show notes, and I would clean them up some, right? They probably wouldn't be the cleanest thing in the world. Not dirty, but I mean, they just wouldn't be clean. Right. And, and I'm not talking about the audience writing the show notes for you, but collaboration to when you have something to say, because today that lands in Chatwing and it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere. It doesn't get used for anything. We have a lot of great information in the chat room. You could go through the chat room, copy and paste it, and bring that into your show notes as well. But that's a lot of cleanup. So it seems to be a kind of a nice balance between trying to copy and paste the chat room and not letting not having a place for the audience to go. I don't know. I may try it on Home Gadget Geeks. We get maybe 15, and I doubt we would get that many people contributing. But I don't know. Thought I'd throw it out there.
The interesting part would be because if we want to try that here. And let's say we just set up a Google Doc. Now, how does a person know? Do I throw this in the chat room?
You would have to start with that, or on the website below the video window, or I think it would take a while to train your audience to be like, okay, come look for this link, so you can join the live. The live. I don't know what you would. I don't even know what you'd call it. Live show notes, I guess. So,
and Craig says sometimes in the chat room they actually do. They're talking about things that we're not.
No, right on. And I think that reinforces my point. That is, if you have these dedicated, like, hey, this is what I'm going to use for show notes, and if you want to contribute to those, if you've got something to say that you think will contribute to those, it could be considered if it's put here. Where it's different, well, I know you can put video and stuff. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Chris says I need to define that person.
We all know who that person is.
It's one of those things, it when you see it. Because there's one thing where it's like, hey, I think this episode might be beneficial to this group. And then you notice like the next week, I think this episode also would be beneficial to this group. And then when they put why, you're like, but that doesn't really pertain to what this group is about. And it's like, and it's one of those things where you just start to notice the name. You're like, oh, this is Mr. So-and-so again. And that looks and smells a lot like self-promotion. You're like, all right, well, whatever, And then the next week, and then the next day, and you're like, that's that same person again that seems to be doing a lot of self-promotion that really doesn't have anything to do with what we talk about here in this particular group. And that's when I'm like, yeah. And that's like I just said, the thing that bugs me is you can send a message to the group and it looks at it in my phone. It looks like you sent me a message, and it's not. You send a message to everybody. And in some cases, it's especially if it's like and Voxer on, in my opinion, on the desktop is fairly horrendous. On the phone, it's not bad, but on in terms of playing things back at a faster speed or whatever. And so I'll see where, so-and-so sent you a message, and you go out and it's literally just a GIF of a thumb. And I'm like, wait a minute. So all they did was they said thumbs up to somebody who said something else. And I'm like, really? That's the thing that I stopped, doing this and that. I've disrupted my day because I thought this is important. And I went out and it's a thumbs up, and I'm like, okay, I got to go in and check my notification settings on that. So,
some good chat going on in the chat room about that guy, by the way. And Randy suggests maybe only giving access to those that or trust, make people earn the right. That I do think there is valid. That's a valid idea in the sense that you're creating a circle, kind of a trust circle of those people, and maybe they get. In Google, you create a hierarchy, like everybody can, and maybe people apply to it. That's a lot of overhead, to be honest with you, to have to handle that. Chris, Go ahead.
Well, I see where SP says he still has the Voxer app, but he left all the Voxer groups, and that's why.
Yeah.
Because it just takes one person to ruin a group. It really does. It's just one person, and in some cases, it's one person that I was like, ugh.
Can you mute? Couldn't you mute the group? So I think that's what you're alluding to, is you need to check your notifications to say, because this is probably a group I only need to check once a day. You know, you and I are in a Slack group together that has moments where it's super busy, and then it'll go dark for 2 or 3 weeks. And
that's a great example of people we trust. Like a lot of times somebody will say, should we bring so-and-so into the group? And most of the time nobody says no. It's usually, yeah, why not? But that is one where we all kind of, there's no self-promotion in that group. It's all about the industry and what's going on and that whole 9 yards. So that's a great example of a group where it's trusted individuals. And it's always interesting because there's a lot of competition in there. Like you have Blueberry people in there with Libsyn people, with, you know, Spreaker people. And it's like, so we kind of, we share things about the industry, but we also know that anything we say can be used.
That's true. That's true. Hey, you know, what would be, maybe this is an area when we think about these shared show notes, maybe this is an area ripe for disruption among these podcast companies, is that wouldn't it be great to have a service that would be running, like they have Google Docs and we're using Google Hangouts. So Google could do this. You and I are talking, there's timestamps associated with this video. In the doc, you could have the chat room that also has timestamps associated with it. So you could tie those two together, what we're talking about what was being said, and then the show notes would go in there. I think there could be some cool things that Google could do now, even with the transcription service and some of those pieces, to kind of wrap this all into one kind of video conferencing / podcasting app that would that could work pretty well. Something, because you know, I get asked all the time, not as much as I used to, but when we first started using Chatwing, I got asked by my customers, is there a copy of the chat transcript? And I'm like, no, we're not. I'm not doing that. But if you captured that chat inside a Google Doc, would had show notes in it, you'd have 2 in 1, and that would be captured. So I don't know, just some more ideas that may be really cool. Just adding the timestamps to the video to it so people could find that section. And Hanny's doing that, right, with Simple Podcast Player, right, where you can he's got the time stamps in the show notes where you can go back to it in the audio. So something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's half the battle of this particular show's the Ask the Podcast Coach. I try to put in timestamps, and that just means I have to re-listen to the show and figure out when did we, because there are times when I think we changed the subject, but we didn't.
Well, we're talking about 2 topics in one right now, right? I'm trying to keep us on the show notes thing, and you keep trying to take it to Voxer, right?
You're doing a very good job, by the way. I appreciate that.
But we are literally covering 2 topics in one, and then every once in a while we'll get, you know, you and I will get distracted by the chat room and bring in a third topic, you know, that's not even on topic, so it makes it difficult.
But in terms of live show notes, SP says the YouTube live video chat now has the reply option where you can see the chat in real time. That I've seen that on Facebook, I think, too, as well. If you watch a video on Facebook, you'll see the chat live, which would be
showing up live. If you're doing it in the replay, it'll do it as if it's live.
It's live, and you're like, wait a minute, there's no little red live button. Why is the chat coming in? So and Chris has a great point. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
It creates a giant mess and you go, well, that didn't work. I ran out of time. There's a guy, I can't remember the name. I think probably not. First of all, next week, there will not be a show. I will be in Nashville, unless you want to bring it now. Okay. So we'll take a week off and I will be back then the 28th. But there's a probably with a new platform. Just because this guy set us up and he's like, you're a digital influencer, please use our platform. And I'm like, oh, I'll give it a shot. And he keeps bugging me because I need to watch a video. It looks pretty cool for pulling people in. It doesn't really, I don't really see it would do anything a whole lot different than what we're doing here. But I was like, kick the tires on it, you know, we'll see. But so I need to remind everybody that we're not going to have a show next week. I'll be down at actually on the 21st, I'll be at, I always forget the name of this thing. It's Nashville Create, something of that nature. I'll be at Podfecta on the 19th. I'll be in Cincinnati on the 18th. at Cincinnati Podcasters Meetup. Podfecta on the 20th, and I do not have it on my website. Yes, I do. Craft Content Nashville is on the 21st. So that's where I will be, and then I'll be driving home on Sunday, preferably missing all the deer. That is the plan.
It's been crazy. I was driving back from Maryville last weekend, and deer were everywhere. It's that time of year, right? They're coming out. So it's that actually worked out well because I have something going on next weekend. So
very cool.
Good stuff. Guys, take a Saturday off. Go watch random YouTube videos about podcasting.
We do have another. Kyle has been on fire, leaving us some feedback. So last week we were talking about different ways to interact with your audience, and Kyle had this comment because I didn't realize this.
Hello, Dave. This is Kyle, and I just wanted to leave you some feedback about the most recent episode of Ask the Podcast Coach. There was a discussion about how to leave audio feedback, and obviously I'm doing that right now on SpeakPipe, and I found that I went to your website and clicked on your SpeakPipe icon, and it just opened a new tab in my Chrome browser on my Android phone, and it is allowing me to record directly into this. So yeah, on Android, there's no app installed or anything like that. It's just letting me do it right out from mobile. So that's pretty cool. And then two other options that I was going to just drop as far as ways that people could leave feedback. These are things that we use in the education space. So one of them is called Flipgrid, and that is video only. And that one does require that the user install the app. As far as I remember, I believe that is the case. So with Flipgrid, they'd have to install the app. And then the other one is called Padlet, and that one allows feedback in a variety of ways, including pictures, text, videos, and audio, and others as well. So Padlet is available. We use that in the education space as well, and it can allow multiple ways of getting feedback to your listeners. So those would both be options that you could post in and embed on a website and allow your users to leave feedback. Thanks.
There you go. So thank you, Kyle.
It's like I paid Kyle. We just covered both of those on Home Gadget Geeks with Chris Nesi on Thursday. So Flipgrid and Padlet, both of them we talked about. Funny.
And I'm trying to find. Chris had asked me what is the name of the platform, and I just know the guy's name is Steve.
It's Steve's platform.
Trying to tell me. And of course, I'm staying with Steve Stewart in Nashville. So when I do that, all my things are from Steve Stewart, and I cannot find the name of it. It's something like Encore, or as soon as I hear it, I'll go, oh yeah, it's that thing, but I can't. I need to, because that's on my list of, oh, hold on. If I pull up my Todoist, because it's on my list of like learn webinar platform. And that takes me to, oh, I love Todoist. It jumps me right to that. Steve Gottlieb, and the name of the Shindig is the name of the, if you go to Shindig Events, I believe is their website. It looks pretty cool. And he was really nice and contacted me like, would you like to use this? And yeah, shindigevents.com.
Spell that for us who are spelling challenged.
SHIN, so Shin Dig, DIG events.com. And I will throw this in the chat room as soon as I figure out how to get back to, so it looks kind of cool. It's supposed to be for like, it's more of a webinar kind of thing. And I was like, does it stream live and can people join? And the thing that's interesting, and this is, I mentioned this like months ago, this guy's been very patient with me. If like right now, if SP and Chris Nesi want to have like their own, like, let's get on live together and talk about this. Like maybe Emily's like, hey, I just made some kick butt French toast, and SP wants to know what the recipe is. I know, now I'm getting hungry.
I know, I need some.
They could actually have live video chat, or somehow your audience can like completely connect behind the scenes. And I told him, I said, I'm not sure I like that idea. I said, there's supposed to be, I said, I want them to interact. I said, and there's a chat room and all sorts of stuff. And I said, I should be, I said, but yeah, I'll kick the tires on it. Why not? We'll see what happens on that. But so
I like on their front page, they're Gartner's 2017 cool vendor. I didn't realize Gartner had a cool vendor category out there. Gartner does a lot of stuff. That's just a new one to me. Cool vendor. These guys are cool vendors.
I know they've been around a while. I think we were going to try them once, like 2 years ago, and there was something where we couldn't pull enough people in, or something was going on, and it's always one of those things that, like, on Thursday I'll be like, oh, I need to go learn Shindig, and then Friday rolls around and I'm like, oh, I really need to go learn Shindig, and then Saturday I wake up and go, yeah, we're still using YouTube this week. That's pretty much how that rolls.
Well, in the video, on the front page, they've got a picture of, two people maybe running the video, and then they've got a bunch of pictures of other people in there that are participating, and I'm still finding people are really hesitant to turn their cameras on.
Yeah. And that's
even when we're like at Gallup, when we're just doing calls, we have Skype, we have video. It always defaults. I never see anybody doing calls with video. It's always audio, and the pictures are just there. And people are super hesitant to get that done. So I don't know if we're completely there yet for those kinds of. That's why I like this style where we're comfortable. People can come in if we want them to, and they can be on video, but everybody else can participate just however they want.
Yeah. Speaking of that, if you just joined us and you want to come in and ask a question live, it's askthepodcastcoach.com/join. Chris Nessie says, check out stage10.tv. Fascinating, he says. Fascinating. I haven't heard of that one. That's a new one. I know there's BeLive.tv. I heard Mike Murphy was talking about that. There's Facebook Live. There's the thing Cam. You know how there's Ecamm, there's Ecamm Live now, I guess, is really cool. That sounds interesting. I was listening to Mike Murphy Unplugged, or whatever he calls his podcast. I think it's Mike Murphy Unplugged.
Yeah, Mike Murphy Unplugged. Yeah.
And he was saying how he's launched a new show that's live, kind of a Q&A show. And
I think it's Live with Mike Murphy or something like that. Yeah.
Something super creative. And he was saying that with Ecamm, you can pull in like 5 people. And I went, wait, hold on. Now you've got my attention. I'm like, if that could be, because I remember I played with that or watched the demo of it, and it looked pretty cool. And of course, Ecamm, if you're like, where have I heard that before? That's the people that make the Ecamm call recorder for Skype on the Mac side. So ask Mike Murphy, yes. And so that's as more and more of this video stuff starts to take off.
It's just for the kids, Dave. Just for the kids. Chris, when I was interviewing Chris on Thursday, he said his kids have no problem going to video. And I think maybe that's what it's going to take to break it. Yeah. Is I think most of the adults today are like, we're still kind of creeped out by it. But the kids are this is how they're learning. And they watch YouTube all the time, and they go live all the time. And like, somebody was saying, I think it was Chris that was saying, they have, their nephew or whatever, who like they want to be, when they're talking to somebody, they expect to see them on the phone. Somebody was holding the phone up to their ear, and the kid was pulling the phone down to see who it was. And so they kind of expect to see a face. Like FaceTime has become the default for kids in a lot of ways, right? Hey, this stage 10, it's free for the first 10,000 people. So if you have 10,000 subs or followers,
there we go.
That's not a bad. I mean, usually those thresholds are like free for the first 10 people,
right?
You're like, oh, that's going to work for like a day, but free for the first 10,000. So that may be,
we're checking out. Yeah.
I tell you what, changing platforms like now at Gallup, if I changed platforms,
suicide.
Oh my God. People just revolt. And not that chatting is easy, and not that getting on the YouTube video is always easy. And not those things are easy, but right. They know how to do it, right? They are
got to retrain your audience.
Yeah, they know the clicks and the buttons and that they have to tap on their head and rub their tummy at the same time to get it done, right? They know how to do that. So, hey, do we have some awesome supporters that
we do? I was trying to find a way to do a transition, but that will work.
There you go.
I was going to say, like, who's not afraid to be on video? People like Greg at debtshebert.com, Jonathan Bloom at weeklyawesome.com. Glenn the Geek, we know, is not afraid of video. He is going in for surgery. I'm trying to remember for what. It's like shoulder, like what's the thing you get for your pitching arm?
Well, you have a HIPAA violation if you say what it is. So
okay, well,
I'm just kidding.
You
I'm just
put it on
kidding.
Facebook, so it's like,
Okay, then it's public. It's fine.
yeah, some sort of surgery. So good luck on that, Glenn.
Yeah.
Josh Rivers over at podcastingexperiments.com, Max Trescott up in the air at aviationnewstalk.com, and Shane from spybrary.com. So thank you to all our awesome supporters for chipping in and keeping the lights on. I keep saying I'm going to throw that into other shows I have, but I've yet to do that. So
Do you have an Ask the Pod, or do you have a School of Podcasting or Ask the Podcast Coach sticker? Have you done
I
those
do
yet?
have a School of Podcasting sticker.
Have you done
In fact, that's on my list of to do. Somebody actually said, my kids love your show. Do you have any stickers? And I'm like, oh, send me your email address and I'll email them to you. And I don't have them in front of me, but I do have a.
Those seem to be popular again.
Yeah, I went over to. Oh, actually, it looks like. Oh, stop! It looks like that.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah.
courtesy of Sticker Mule. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/sticker mule, probably, or askthepodcastcoach.com/sticker mule.
Do
They do have an affiliate program.
you remember how much they were?
They were not cheap. Let
Yeah.
me. I will.
I think there's cheaper ways to do that because yours is printed and then cut too, right?
Yeah, I
They
went
have
for
a cut on it.
advanced version. And for the record, it's kind of a pain in the butt then because they don't stack as. I mean, they stack,
Right.
but they're kind of once you open up the package, it's kind of hard to put a rubber band around it.
And I think you should probably err on the side of bigger than smaller, but not too big.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of that maybe 4-inch.
Those were, according to this, back in September 2nd, 2017. Those are 3.5 by 1 inch, and including they were $64, but because of something that I got $10 off. I don't remember what that was. So they were $54 with free shipping. So for how many? For 100. So you're looking at whatever, 50 cents a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. I did a version of stickers, and they were kind of the cheap on a sheet kind of, and we got them for maybe a nickel or a 15 cents each. They're really super cheap ones. But my buddy Dave McCabe over at Reset he did the really nice kind of more vinyl-y feel to it. And it's kind of like, I think that's nice. I stick them on the back of my Surface, and I've got actually a big PC that I've been putting them on. So I think right now those are catching back up on popularity.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Because I know anytime I get one, I usually like throw it on the back of my, as you saw, the back of my iPad.
Yep.
Things of that nature. It's one of those things because, who knows? Somebody might see that. I did have somebody once when I was doing something on a plane, and my iPad was closed, and so they could see all my stickers. And so the guy next to me goes, "So you're in a podcast, huh?" And I was like, "As a matter of fact, and he pulled my string." I was like, "Oh,
Let me tell you about my podcast."
yeah, like off to the races with that." Yeah, I think it's worth it. To me, I'm a big business card guy. Those are the cheapest, but the fun thing is you can't, unless you got some chewing gum, you can't stick a business card on the back of an iPad and have it, or
Well, I
t-shirt.
think you have to have both.
Yeah.
I think you have to have both.
I did make $6 on t-shirts. Now I'm not sure how much of this, because one of them was mine at Teespring. I'm happy to say that this has not been washed twice. And even though it could use a good ironing at this point, it seems to be holding up okay.
Nice.
So, and did I just say Teespring? Oh, shame on me. TeePublic. I'm so sorry, James.
Oh, yikes. They won't listen anyways. They're not listening. Your vendors don't listen to your show unless you say something wrong, and then they definitely listen.
Here's a good question, because I decided to do it, although I don't agree with it. And I politely said, I don't agree with this, but I'll do it anyway. I had somebody, because the Logical Weight Loss Podcast is a show I do that I'm really kind of like, it's one of my motivations of losing the weight is I really want to stop the podcast. I've been doing it for almost 4 years. I've about said all there is to say. And I got approached by a sponsor from some green tea. They're going to send me some green tea to drink. And you drink one in the morning and you drink one at night. And apparently it makes you poop a lot. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice.
And this helps you then lose weight. And they're like, would you be interested in having a sponsored? And they're like, we would send you some stuff and then you talk about it and here's some bullet points. We would like a mid-roll. And I'm like, all right, well, do you have any demographics? So thank goodness many moons ago, I went over to PodTrack and had a survey. So, I mean, I get like probably close to somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 downloads. That's one of the reasons why that show's still going. And I used the PodTrack analytics on that, not the downloads, although I used to many, many moons ago, but they have an audience survey. So luckily I had, a survey. So here again, I took out how many people answered the survey, which in this case was like 33, and just said, here's their education. Here's how much money made, how many are made. It's 80% female on that particular show, and sent them that, and then send them a screenshot of my Libsyn stats. Here's the downloads for the last month. And they said, great, we would love to give you, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this live or not, but I'm going to, $50 CPM. And I'm like, absolutely. And they go, we want to do one episode. And I went, okay. Usually I would recommend at least a month to get your brand out there. I'm not sure one call to action in the middle of a show is going to be really getting you any kind of like return on investment. And they said, well, we want to start with one as a test. And I went, well, okay, I'll do it. Would you do that? Or would you say no? Because in the end, I'm opening up the door to failure probably.
Yeah, I might say yes. I mean, it depends who it is. And I don't, we don't do, well, I say we don't do a lot of ads, and then I do a bunch of host read ads at the beginning and at the end. So I don't know. That's a good question. Would you do it just for one? It may not be worth all the paperwork that you have to, when you join a new vendor, you got to do a 1090, no, not 1099, but whatever, all that paperwork you have to do to get, for that. It may not be worth it just for $50, but it might, in that case, I'd almost rather take in kind value if that's possible instead of actual cash, because that in swag or in something else, it's a little easier to do accounting on that way as opposed to $50. You gotta by the way, taxes this Tuesday, so I still haven't done mine.
Me neither. It's gonna be done this weekend. I'm like, it's not.
Today is the day. Yeah, so I don't know, Dave. For that little, I'd be like, and if you're just gonna test it, it's like, send me something of $50 of value. In
a bunch of tea, which will be good because I've never had green tea. I don't know,
Yeah, I might say even for one of those kinds of things where it's just going to be once, is say, send me your product, let me try it, we'll talk about it and do it, and then if you like it, if it gets some results, then we can talk about a paid relationship.
Yeah. So I was like,
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, really one like. But my guess is they're doing this on a bunch of podcasts.
Yeah, they're trying to find their audience.
And I was like, okay, but we'll see. And they sent me a bunch of bullet points. And of course, it's always hilarious. They're like, it's supposed to be a 30-second ad. And they give you enough content for about a 10-minute show on its own.
Yeah, you got to highlight a few of those sections. And it's hard to do a 30-second ad. I mean, it is, you have to be tight and know what you're doing. And I mean, just look at Leo. He does... Yeah. I'm sure they sell those as 1 minute spots, but they're all 3, 4, 5 minutes long.
How long is Leo's show typically?
Well, Windows Weekly that I listen to, it's 2 hours. I mean, It can be up to 2 hours.
Yeah. So like a 4-minute ad out of a 2-hour show is not, but I'm with you. That's going to get me hitting the fast forward button unless it's
right. And I just 30. They get 100 to 150 to 250,000 downloads for that show every week. Wow. It's a real popular show. So he can, he does it because he can. Like there's, no one says he can't. He's not a radio show. He's not up against the clock. And if you don't like it, don't listen to it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of all this. So,
hey, I found a thing about Voxer. Did you listen to the latest episode of The Feed by any chance?
I do not listen to The Feed. Maybe I should, but I don't.
Yeah, Voxer. In this, I can't wait to hear how this turns out because Rob and Rob are friends. We know Rob and the folks over at Voxner, and they basically scraped a bunch of directories and were sending unsolicited email, shall we say, to people about signing up at Voxer. And one person emailed Libsyn and said, hey, take me off this list. And they sent it to Rob, and they forwarded the email. And it turns out it was Voxner or Voxer, whatever the heck, or Dynamo or whatever it was.
Oh, that's Voxnest. That's
Voxnest, thank you.
Spreaker. Yeah.
I'm getting my Vox. Yes, thank you. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Yeah.
Voxner, yeah. And so so they said, please unsubscribe me. And they got the thing that said, you have been unsubscribed from Libsyn 2 list. So Rob was like, oh, hold on a second. Because now you're making it sound like we shared your information. And Rob went on a soapbox and said, we didn't share your information with anybody. They're scraping RSS feeds, and that's not cool, and blah, blah, blah. And so the other thing I found out this week is I had a Libsyn customer who was not happy because all of a sudden her stats went, and she's like, you know, I usually get X amount of downloads, and all of a sudden I'm getting like a third of that. What's going on? So I go in, I look at her account. What does she have? A Voxner redirect. And I said, you might want to contact them. I said, because the way this works is if there's an ad, it's going to play the file on their server, not your Libsyn file. And if it does play that, I don't think it then circles back around to say, hey, we played one over here, add that to your stats. And so she contacted them, and she came back and said, that's exactly what's going on. And she said, so please remove my thing. I don't want to do that anymore, because she would now have to check stats in two different places. So I always wondered how that worked. I'm like, if you're playing a file that's not on Libsyn or whatever your media host is, how is that going to affect your stats? And I thought, because I understand that if it doesn't play, because it goes to Voxner first, and if there's an ad, it plays.
Voxnest.
Yeah, I'm stuck on that. Voxnest. Dynamo. Let's call it Dynamo, because that's what that particular server.
Yeah, that's that platform.
And if there's no ad, it just goes on back to Libsyn and plays that file. But if it does play an ad from Dynamo, apparently it's not making it back to your media host to update your stats. So you're just going to have to check your stats in two different places. So now, is that a bad thing? That's another one. It really depends on you, and I'm just dying to see what they're paying per download. I know Radio Public, which is interesting. We were talking about this on the Podcasters Roundtable. They just have a flat CPM of 20. So, which is whatever, $2 cents per download. And that's where, but the interesting thing is what they want you to do is they're trying to get people to download the Radio Public app.
Right.
So if you're using Overcast or Stitcher or, go over and listen over here so we can put ads in front of you. And I'm like, that is just a bad idea. So that will be interesting to see how that works. But I'm tempted to, because I'm playing with a new platform. You want to hear something sad? I have an actual physical copy. This is a diary I did of a band I was in. And I remember this being much more entertaining. And it is once we get the band going. But the first, what would be season of this is me getting the band and in auditioning like 5 different drummers. Because I'm going to try another platform. And I'm actually tempted to give them, Radio Public, the RSS feed so it can be on their platform just to see, what kind of, me, I love to play with stuff. But I was somewhat bummed that I remember everybody reading this and laughing at when I wrote it back in 1995. I was like, oh my God, you're kidding. Because the whole time I'm like, why doesn't the band have a website? I'm like, because it's 1995. It was like,
yeah.
So I might play with Radio Public just to see what kind of traction I'm getting over there. If there are people over there that want to hear what it's like to start a country band. But the whole CPM thing is just it's not going to work for most people.
If YouTube could figure this out for audio, they could and get a decent player, it could be game over. Like all this other stuff, all these other companies that are doing this stuff, everybody fighting against each other, a lot of co-opetition going on, all those other kinds of things. But think about it for a second. Like if Google would just decide like, no, we're going to dominate this space. We're going to provide free audio and video, and audio would be easy to add, right? Because it's even smaller than video, right? And say we're going to become the default player and control all the ads. It could be game over for everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, right.
If Google came in or Apple and decided they wanted to start a media host,
I don't think Apple would. That's not their core competency. Like they're not good at that. Google, I mean, if just apply the fundamentals of YouTube to audio and make a player that works on both Android and iPhone that does all the things a regular podcast player would do, and like allow for downloads and streaming, like I think I don't know. Just like I think it'd be game over. Like everybody else would be like, well, this has been fun doing this, but that's over.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. And then Pandora has said they're now working on the podcasting genome, which is what they did for music, where they go in and they have this whole algorithm where, hey, because you listen to this song and it has double bass and 2 guitars and somebody screaming like they're on fire, you might like this song. And they're going to try to do that with podcasting. And I'm like, that could be very
the same. I'm not sure that's the same thing. Music's 3 minutes long, and you get repetitive. Podcasts are long or can be long. I don't know if you get the same effect.
Yeah. On one hand, I'm like, okay, now we're talking podcast discovery again. But if they did it right in a way, and the one thing that you have on Pandora, of course, is the thumbs up, thumbs down, which would then shape that. So I was kind of like, well, I'm excited because in the Infinite Dial, it's like the #1 streaming platform. And they did buy AdWiz for $1.4 billion or something like that. A lot of money. But I will be interested to see how they do it, if it's passed through, or are they going to host the files? Because if they do, which they probably will, since they bought AdWiz, so they can put ads in front of everything. It's one of those where I'm like, all right, I see where it's coming. I'll be interested to see what it's like when it rolls out. I know right now, Spotify, according to Rob, with only 15% of Libsyn users using Spotify, is already #2. But they occasionally are hitting some technical snafus where people's like, I released a show 4 days ago. It's not in Spotify yet. What's the deal? Now, to their credit, they've got a way that we can contact them to go, here's the person, here's their feed, what's the deal? And usually it's fixed within a couple days. But I think I don't understand. Well, I understand why people do this. They like why they don't just do the pass through, like Spreaker. If you want your show on Spreaker, I think you can do the same thing on Podbean. You give them their RSS, and when people click play, it plays from whatever media host you're using. I'm not sure. I guess I don't get. To me, that would be the easy way to do it, and find a way if you want to put ads in it, like Stitcher. They have a pass through, but they still play ads. I'm like, why don't you guys just do that? Because then we actually get our own stats. So I'll be interested to see. I don't know. You have any thoughts on Pandora?
No, it's another thing. I don't know if that's the future of listening. Might be. I don't know. We could be surprised if one of those services actually gets traction in the podcast world. Probably most today we're still RSS, right? We're still a podcast player. We're still some of those kinds of things. I think someone's going to have to get it. Like I said, Google could dominate in this space and then control the ad space for it, which is where they, kind of where they need to be. Dave, this week I updated a bunch of album art for our Gallup podcast. One of our designers created a whole bunch of new art and pushed it out. I was pleasantly surprised, maybe an hour for it to get updated in all the directories. I put it on, we use Spreaker as our host. So I put it on Spreaker, and then I went into iTunes and refreshed all those feeds. You could just go in there and go refresh. And within an hour or two, let's just say, definitely by the end of the day, everybody was updated. Google, iTunes, Spreaker had it all pushed out and everywhere. And I was like, wow. I was expecting, shards of glass in my eye and stubbing my toe and stepping on a nail. I expected all those things to happen, and it actually went really smooth. So that was nice to get all that stuff updated. It's a good time when you're doing that, it's a good time to kind of check your metadata. What did you say about your show when you set up this feed the first time? It may have changed. since that time. So it's a good time to check that meta as well.
Yeah, the key when you're changing your artwork, be sure to use a different file name. So if it was logo iTunes before, make it logo iTunes 2, because sometimes the apps won't update because they think it's the same file. So give it a new file name. Make sure it meets the Apple specifications, because otherwise it won't update. But once you do that, yep, you hit it right on the head. Usually it's less than 24 hours is what we tell people, and sometimes it's really, really quick, like you said, a couple hours. So Jim, what's coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
We talked about it earlier. Chris Nessie is on. We're talking ed tech, and there's a bunch of podcasting conversations. So it's now live. Head over to theaverageguy.tv. Look for show 351.
Nice. And on the School of Podcasting, I'm going to pull something out of my butt. I think is and it'll be like, and welcome to episode number 317. And that'll be it.
Not an image. Now I get that stuck in my head.
No, my goal was I have a couple of different tools. I've played with one, but a couple different tools I wanted to play with and then report back on them. And I've got a funeral to go to today, so I don't have any time to play. I had something I was going to do yesterday that I didn't get to do because I was picking up people from the airport. So we always talk about having margin in your life, and when you don't have any, it's a problem. So we'll figure it out on Monday. Tune in and find out what Dave did. So until then, we're here every Saturday, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Stick around for some post show.